Welcome to another Beauty in the Wood art tutorial. Today we're going to do a resin ocean with wave tutorial on how to create cells. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I always like to do is make sure that my project is level. So I've got a little level here. I'm going to go ahead and put that on. Just make sure that the board is leveled out so the epoxy won't run in one direction more than another. You can see here I did have to readjust one section just to kind of bring and raise that up a little bit. So now we'll move on to the next step. Clear my workspace out just a little bit more because you need to have plenty of space to work. I'm using Ligari system today. It's a two-part, part A and part B system. I'm just showing you how I put a clear cup inside of my measuring cup so I can actually continue to reuse the measuring cup again and again and again. I had to do it twice for you just to make sure you didn't miss it the first time. So Ligari mixes as a 2-to-1 mix ratio. You need 2 parts of A to mix with 1 part B, and I'm pouring my part B in first because part B is a little heavier, so it actually part A is a little heavier, so it actually sinks down through part B and starts the mixing process. And if I put in part B first, hopefully it won't sit on the bottom as easily when I mix it up. So kind of measuring, poured in a little too much, a little more than I expected, more than I wanted to, so I'm going to go ahead and dump out a little back into the container. I'm using 4 ounces of part B and 8 ounces of part A. That'll give me a total of 12 ounces of resin for what I'm doing today. There's part A. Take the lid off, point to the letter, and so we'll do 2 parts of this to mix in with part B that I've already got in the cup. Once you have your parts poured, then it's time to mix, and I will speed up the mixing process for you. I generally try to take a couple of minutes to mix small batches like this. I'm going to scrape the edge of my stick off to make sure that there's nothing clinging to it. I'm going to scrape the edges multiple times to make sure that it doesn't cling to that as well. And so yeah, that's kind of the process there. Now I am getting ready. I'm going to actually tape up my edges just a little bit to catch the resin for a while, so it doesn't, while it thickens up a little bit, so that my edges will, so that all the resin doesn't run off the top of my board. Resin and epoxy are interchangeable words for what I'm using. Resin tends to be a little bit more of the preferred word for artists, and epoxy kind of is the more layman terms for, like, if you're doing epoxy floors or epoxy countertops or but resin just, I don't know, sounds a little more sophisticated, maybe not quite as cheap in some people's minds, I guess. I don't know, just a silly technical term. But anyway, taping up the edge. I'm not going to tape up all the way around on this one because I'm only putting epoxy over the handle. We're going to leave the cutting board portion of this usable for cutting herbs or whatever you want to cut on it. It is important when you're taping to make sure your edges are pressed firmly, and on this case, because it's such a thin board, I'm actually going to fold the tape up underneath a little bit as well, so the resin doesn't escape down the edge too quickly or too soon. So, mixing the resin just a little more again. I'm going to pour it into multiple different containers so I can create different colors. I'm going to do an ocean theme, so this is going to be quite a few different blues and kind of ocean aquamarine greens And I'm going to try and do a little sandy shoreline area as well. So we're going to add a little sand to the project. You'll see that in a minute. Pouring my epoxy into 4 different containers, and then I'm going to add my colors. The small cup I'm using here is for my white pigment. I'm using Ligari paste white for my color for my waves. You'll see that in a minute. There it is. And I'm using eye candy pigments along with Pigmently pigments, the 2 brand names for the 2 mica powders that I'm using on my in my colors. And you'll see those in just a second here too as we continue to mix, just a bunch of mixing. I'm going to add a Resi Blast. Basically, this is a cell creating product that you get. I think it's called Resi Blast. I think that's the name of the product itself. Can't quite read the label anymore because it's been used a lot. But it's an additive that you can add to epoxy that actually allows the cells to spread out a little more and give you that ocean cell that you're looking for. I know I recently watched a video where somebody was attempting to do ocean waves and they just couldn't get it to work, and it looked like they were struggling to get the cells to spread. And so there's 2 different ways that you can get that to work, and I like to use both. I'll use that Resi Blast in my epoxy itself, mix it directly into the white, and then I'll spread spritz a Isopropyl 99 alcohol over the top as well, which also helps to spread out the resin a little more and create that cell-like ocean wave cell. And you'll see that here later on as I continue to build this project. Adding the colors now. Got 4 different colors, ranging from a darker blue all the way up to a very light greenish blue. And I'm just going to mix all 4. Mix. I know this gets a little boring, but if you're watching the whole video, it's a good idea because it'll show you different things to do and how to make sure that your epoxy is completely mixed before you try and pour. I know a lot of people, when they're first getting started, will not mix enough, and that's probably the number one issue. The number one error is not mixing the epoxy because they get bored, or they get tired, or they get frustrated, or they get impatient, and they try and pour it too soon, and they end up with these gummy spots where the resin was not mixed properly. And then they go, why is my resin tacky? Why is it sticky? And the simple answer is you didn't mix it enough. Yep, still mixing. And of course I'm also mixing the color into this epoxy as well at the same time, so that kind of kills two birds with one stone. Mix, mix, mix. Yep. Continuing on, moving on, jumping ahead, and here we go. Alright, so here I am pouring several of the colors together a little bit to create kind of a mixed, what they call in the terms, what we would call a dirty pour. So I'm not actually mixing them together to create one color, I'm pouring them into one container, but allowing them to kind of remain separate so that when I pour them out, they'll come out separately, if that makes sense. But I'm also leaving them in separate containers as well, so I have some to kind of mix in on its own. I don't know, it's difficult to explain where it actually makes sense, but hopefully you can figure this out. And now we can start to pour. Basically, this part is up to you. You know, depends on what you see, what you think, how you feel it. I'm going to start with a darker blue toward the back and work my way up to the lighter greens and blues at the front of the wave. So kind of start around the handle, let it flow over the edge, down the handle a little bit. It'll probably get sanded off later, but it's just easier to not have to worry about that. And then continue to move out to the front of the cutting board with the colors kind of mixing together and bringing out the different colorations and stuff. So I don't know, it's totally up to you at this point. You get to be the creative artist. You get to pour the epoxy however you want. The first time, you're probably not going to like the way it looks. My first tables, my first attempts, they were terrible, and I was scared to death to try them. And I still get stuff wrong sometimes. The epoxy is a finicky thing. It doesn't do what you want it to do every single time. Sometimes it's just, I don't know how to explain it. It just is what it is. But you keep playing with it. Had a visitor come into the shop while I was working. She was worried she was going to interrupt my YouTube video, but I told her I was going to do voiceover, so here I am doing voiceover, and now you get to watch me laughing randomly with no sound. Kind of like those old movies. I don't know, maybe I should try some bad lip reading. Continuing to pour the epoxy. You can kind of see me giving it that wave pattern on the front. I don't know how to explain that, but like making it look like a wave instead of just a straight across flat, straight across front, if that makes sense. I'm gonna add some sparkly things just to the top of the resin, just for fun. You can pretty much do almost anything that you want. I'm gonna also add some sand and shells to the front of this one for the fun of it, because I enjoy stuff like that. You don't have to, and then you know, basically you can do whatever you want to, of course. But these are just kind of giving you ideas and maybe getting your creative juices flowing. So this is the sand that I'm going to put in the front of it as well. Just kind of pour that across. I'm actually just pouring it on the wood, and then I'm going to tilt it a little bit to get it to kind of touch up, just like fall into the very front edge of the resin. And then after that, whatever is not stuck to the resin, I'll just pour it off the front and get rid of it. So, here. All right, now for the very front of the board, the very front of the ocean wave, we're going to bring in the white pigment and touch the very top, very front of the edge. So kind of create a wave, the white section of it. Need some nice music in the background. Oh wait, I got something playing already. Hopefully you guys liked the video. If you're discovering and learning, this is a great one to watch. Gives you a lot of fun, neat tips and tricks. This is the air gun I'm using now to spread the ocean wave. You can see immediately it pushing back, and the cells kind of developing already as it flows over the top of the color. The white flows over the top of the color and spreads out. So, and it's going to continue to flow. You'll see it flowing there. I am going to get some sand and pour it on the top of the board as well in the front, and then just kind of allow it to stick up to the very, very edge of the front of the wave, and then pour the rest of the excess sand off the top. And now I'm getting ready to do the Isopropyl 99 spritz. We're going to spritz it just over the top. This is my spray bottle. Spritz a little bit over the top of the board, over the resin, and allow it to just kind of help those cells to spread out a little more. Just like that. That's all it takes. There you go. Take a look at that. Isn't that cool? So beautiful. I love the way it flows like that. Alright, if you watched the whole thing, then you probably should like and subscribe to this video. Thank you so much for checking in.